Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Intercept Editor-in-Chief Betsy Reed.
Hello, and thank you all for coming tonight. The hot room, it's all part of the plan. I'm really thrilled to be here for this, and I think it really is an extraordinary chance we have to hear from some of the boldest and most creative activists in the world today. We called this event The Right to a Future because that is precisely what is at stake. Your right to live the rest of your lives on this planet with food to eat and air to breathe and homes to sleep in amid the abundance of plants and animals that has provided human beings with physical and emotional sustenance for as long as we've existed. After a summer of one terrifying weather event after another, from hurricanes to melting glaciers to deadly heat waves and burning forests across the world, it's hard not to be overcome with feelings of sadness and regret. A friend of mine who is a longtime social justice activist recently told me a story about a conversation he had with his teenage godson. My friend said to him in a long car ride, I am so sorry about all of this that we're passing on to you. And his godson, who was a very sweet, mild-mannered kid, replied, that is not good enough. He was right, and I am sorry, and I think I can speak on behalf of the members of my generation at this event tonight, at least when I say that. But sorry is not good enough. At The Intercept, we produce investigative journalism that uncovers injustices in the hope that in the end, suffering and oppression will be lessened. We've exposed the killing of civilians in the US military's drone war, the abuse of immigrants in ICE detention, the hypocrisy of politicians who claim to care about our climate, yet take money from the very industries that created the chaos we're in. Recently, we revealed the corrupt process that led to the election of Brazil's far-right president, Jair Bolsonaro, the man whose policies are so hostile to the environment that he might as well have lit the match that set the Amazon ablaze. While we believe this journalistic work is critical, we also know that, like being sorry, just telling stories and conveying facts is not enough. Without people who take action based on the facts before them, we're nowhere. That's why it's so critical that today's global youth movement is saying no to business as usual in the face of the facts of the climate emergency. And it's why tonight we're handing the mic to some amazing young people who can help guide us toward a different future. No one embodies this spirit more than Greta Thunberg, the Swedish student who is here with us tonight, fresh off her trip to New York City by sailboat. Greta, with her piercing clarity and calm indignation, has singularly exposed the abject failure of the world's leaders to respond to the climate emergency and lead us out of this catastrophe. Greta will be in conversation with the Intercept's senior correspondent, Naomi Klein, my dear friend and colleague, and at once the most radical and practical thinker I've ever encountered. Naomi points out the patterns all around us that we are too familiar with to see. She lays bare the stark realities and daunting challenges facing us and lights the way with her brilliant insight to a brighter future. Her books include The Shock Doctrine, This Changes Everything, No is Not Enough, and now her new book, On Fire, The Burning Case for a Green New Deal. This book is available tonight. She'll be signing it after the event. And it actually is not available anywhere else. It's exclusively available tonight. It won't be launched until the 17th. And because the future is our theme tonight, we've asked several young climate leaders to set their imaginations free and describe the world they want and deserve. Their visions point to a different future, neither utopia nor dystopia, but a world in which solidarity, collective action, and justice triumph over nationalism, racism, and greed. First, we're going to hear from Xiuhtezcatl, who will also perform for us later in the evening. Xiuhtezcatl is the youth director for Earth Guardians, a hip-hop artist and a plaintiff in Juliana versus United States, which is a lawsuit from 21 plaintiffs against the U.S. government, including officials like former President Barack Obama and current President Trump, for knowingly failing to protect them from climate change. Next up will be Xiye Bastida. Xiye is a 17-year-old climate activist organizer in New York. She's a recipient of the Spirit of the United Nations Award, an organizer with Fridays for Future, and a member of the People's Climate Movement New York's Core Committee. Well, also joining us is Vic Barrett. He is a courageous plaintiff as well in Juliana versus United States and a fellow with the Alliance for Climate Education. Vic was just 11 years old when Superstorm Sandy devastated his hometown of New York. After each of these young activists speaks to us about the alternate futures they've envisioned, Naomi and Greta will take the stage, and we'll also have the chance to hear from Xiuhtezcatl, an indigenous leader from the Ecuadorian Amazon who is here to give us a firsthand account of what is happening there. Before we get underway, I'd like to say a few quick thank yous to all of our guests, to Naomi, who's, as I mentioned, going to be signing her book after the event, to 350.org and Bill McKibben for programming and planning help, to the volunteer artists Dolly Martinez, Crystal Clarity, and Kata Romo for creating the banners you see here, to Purpose for organizing Tuntiak's visit to the United States, to my team at the Intercept for pulling this whole evening together, to Callum Grieve, who helped organize Greta's trip, a huge feat, and to Greta. Greta, who may have traveled the longest and certainly the most treacherous route to get here tonight. We're so grateful. If you care to share any thoughts or images from the event on social media, please use the hashtag #OurClimateFuture. Finally, I want to offer, as a sort of appetizer for our menu of creative activism this evening, a short video from The Intercept. This is called A Message from the Future with Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. It's a fusion of fact, fiction, and art. All right, well, we're going to just see the video. It's been viewed more than 8 million times. I would like to say, before you see it, that it was created by the incredible artist Molly Crabapple, directed by Kim Bookbinder and Jim Batt, and co-written by Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and Avi Lewis. Please enjoy the film and the evening.
or hundreds of millions of people would be more likely to face food and water shortages, poverty, and death. 12 years to change everything. How we got around, how we fed ourselves, how we made our stuff, how we lived and worked, everything. The only way to do it was to transform our economy, which we already knew was broken, since the vast majority of wealth was going to just a small handful of people, and most folks were falling further and further behind. It was a true turning point. Lots of people gave up. They said we were doomed. But some of us remembered that as a nation, we'd been in peril before. The Great Depression, World War II. We knew from our history how to pull together to overcome impossible odds. And at the very least, we owed it to our children to try. The wave began when Democrats took back the House in 2018, and then the Senate and the White House in 2020, and launched the decade of the Green New Deal, a flurry of legislation that kicked off our social and ecological transformation to save the planet. It was the kind of swing-for-the-fence ambition we needed. Finally, we were entertaining solutions on the scale of the crises we faced without leaving anyone behind. That included Medicare for All, the most popular social program in American history. We also introduced the federal jobs guarantee, a public option including dignified living wages for work. Funnily enough, the biggest problem in those early years was a labor shortage. We were building a national smart grid, retrofitting every building in America, putting trains like this one all across the country. We needed more workers. That group of kids from my neighborhood were right in the middle of it all, especially this one girl, Ileana. Her first job out of college was with AmeriCorps Climate, restoring wetlands and bayous in coastal Louisiana. Most of her friends were in her union, including some oil workers in transition. They took apart old pipelines and got to work planting mangroves with the same salary and benefits. Of course, when it came to healing the land, we had huge gaps in our knowledge. Luckily, indigenous communities offered generational expertise to help guide the way. Ileana got restless, tried her hand as a solar plant engineer for a while, but eventually made her career in raising the next generation as part of the Universal Child Care Initiative. As it turns out, caring for others is valuable, low-carbon work, and we started paying real money to folks like teachers, domestic workers, and home health aides. Those were years of massive change, and not all of it was good. When Hurricane Sheldon hit southern Florida, parts of Miami went underwater for the last time. But as we battled the floods, fires, and droughts, we knew how lucky we were to have started acting when we did. And we didn't just change the infrastructure, we changed how we did things. We became a society that was not only modern and wealthy, but dignified and humane too. By committing to universal rights like healthcare and meaningful work for all, we stopped being so scared of the future. We stopped being scared of each other, and we found our shared purpose. Ileana heard the call too, and in 2028, she ran for office in the first cycle of publicly funded election campaigns. And now she occupies the seat that I once held. I couldn't be more proud of her, a true child of the Green New Deal. When I think back to my first term in Congress, riding that old school Amtrak in 2019, all of this was still ahead of us. And the first big step was just closing our eyes and imagining it. We can be whatever we have the courage to see.
Piali, Nanatoka Xiuhtezcatl Natiu, Xiuhtezcatl Machililia, Tanacinclalicuatlicue, Tatatonatiu Nanamesli. Saludos a todos. Peace, everybody. My name is Xiuhtezcatl Natiu. I'm a descendant of the Mexica peoples of Mexico, Tenochtitlan, Mexico City. I'm an artist, a climate activist, co-founder of Now, and a former youth director of Earth Guardians. It is 2029. I'm 29 years old. And when I was a little boy, my father taught me of a poem that my ancestors passed down to us. And a piece of it says, Tineshkayuta tiu sochime, Tineshkayuta tiu cuicame, por lo menos dejamos flores, por lo menos dejamos cantos. At the least we have left flowers, at the least we have left songs. And this line of the poem reminds me that although our people were colonized, our temples destroyed, our ceremonies forbidden, our legacy would live on in the flowers and in the songs, in the hearts of our people. That even in the face of the complete collapse of my ancestor society and our way of life, we believed in a vision where the younger generation would carry on the ways of our people until we could live freely in this world again. And survival, resilience, and the strength of my people, my ancestors, runs in my blood. And when our generation was faced with the greatest crisis humanity has collectively seen, the climate crisis, I remember the prayers of my elders. I remember this poem. And I knew my place in the movement that brought us into the thriving, living world we are living in today, in 2029. It's been 10 years since everything changed. 10 years since the last mass burning of the Amazon, since the world was silent about the acidification of our oceans and the melting of the ice. It has been 10 years since the Supreme Court ruled in our favor to uphold our constitutional rights and force the US government to play its part in restoring the balance in our climate. 10 years since nations globally began to implement fearless, just climate recovery plans from the pressure of the collapsing planet and the millions of people led by the youth that flooded the courts and the streets to demand change. And we couldn't have made it here without the voices of indigenous and frontlines communities that have always been the spearheads of our movement. As indigenous peoples, resistance has always been woven into our existence, fighting to protect our land, our air, our water, our children is a part of who we are. We taught our allies in the movement that this struggle is not separate from us. To fight for a just climate is to fight for everything we love. We reminded the world that as the present generation, everything we do is in honor of our ancestors, of those that came before us, in honor of those that we have lost in this struggle, in honor of the future generations, those that are yet to be born. We reminded the world that we are not separate from nature, from water, or from each other. 2019 became the year where we began to tear down the barriers and borders that separated our people, our movements, and our stories. Climate action became woven into every aspect of our society. I remember that time so clearly. It wasn't just activists and politicians who were building the future. I remember artists, creative storytellers, actors, and athletes beginning to realize their part in these movements to shape culture and reach the masses. Entrepreneurs, designers, architects, and poets began to reimagine what our society could look like if we use this time as crisis, as humanity's most unifying moment. I remember the shows I played for thousands of people, and how we transformed those arenas into places of celebration and unity. Our generation began to change the culture of our movements that year, all the way back in 2019. And the idea that being an activist was in a lot of ways left behind because we realized that within us, our power as humanity, an identity that belongs to us all, to change the story and to build the world we've always known has been possible, was within all of us. The place the world is in right now is a result of us striking that balance between technology, innovation, culture, and the knowledge and the wisdom of the original peoples of this planet. Here we are, 10 years after changing everything, redefining our legacy, carried on with flowers and songs. Xiuhtezcatl. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's the year 2029. My name is Xiye Bastida, and I am Otomi from the indigenous highlands of central Mexico. I am 27 years old, and I am a graduate student studying environmental conservation and indigenous sovereignty. It was a beautiful day today. I walked through Riverside Park among blooming flowers and fresh air. You all remember how we got here, right? It was the moment when morality and pragmatism came together. Morality, which can be a synonym for goodness and rightness, and pragmatism, which refers to dealing with things sensibly and mindfully in a way that is based on real rather than theoretical considerations. It was the moment when we imagined a better world, but actually went beyond our imagination and started acting. For me, the moment when we imagined what our world could be was in 2007, when the United Nations put forward the Declaration on the Rights for Indigenous Peoples. We went beyond imagination and into action in the year 2019, where everyone not only came together, but realized that their hopes and dreams for a better future were not going to be achieved through competition, but through collaboration. The moment where everyone realized that in order to heal the world, we needed to heal each other. Most importantly, we realized that the solutions were not going to come from the same thinking that caused the crisis. One of the tipping points was the youth movement, which I was part of. I remember the September 20th climate strike as the biggest intergenerational and intercultural demonstration in history. This and other strikes were essential in raising awareness and putting together policy that made our structural changes mindful, peaceful, and conscious. After the burning of the Amazon rainforest, the contamination of water because of pipelines, and the rapid loss of hundreds of species, we recognized that indigenous peoples had been taking care of the earth for thousands of years. Society learned to respect that knowledge and took these teachings from the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and embedded them in our culture. Let me start with Article 13. It states that indigenous peoples have the right to revitalize and transmit to future generations their histories and philosophies. So we included local indigenous philosophy classes in schools in which children learn to take care of the earth from an early age. Then we look at Article 18, which states that indigenous peoples have the right to participate in decision-making in matters that affect our rights. So we made it mandatory to have indigenous voices at all levels of decision-making, from local to federal policy. This was done so that policies that affect us would be made in a mindful way. I would point out the privatization of water, but thankfully, indigenous voices prevented this from moving forward. Then we have Article 25, which states that indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their spiritual relationship with the land. So we reevaluated sacred sites, which are vital for human connection with the earth. And those territories now have legal recognition and protection. We protected our oceans, mountains, streams, rivers, aquifers, lakes, forests, and everything that gives us life. But most importantly, we looked at Article 29, which says that indigenous peoples have the right to the conservation and protection of the environment. This was the article with the most impact because we went from environmental racism to environmental justice. We went from exploiting our land to protecting our rivers, from burning fossil fuels to restoring our air, from fracking our land to implementing regenerative agriculture. We made it a shift to take care of the environment in a way that became part of our culture and routine. With all of the laws that were implemented to respect, recognize, and value indigenous peoples, we realized that we are on Earth to take care of life. We are on Earth to take care of each other, to take care of our history, and to take care of our future. And I want to thank all of you because we could not have done it without your cooperation and your open hearts. Thank you.
It's the year 2029, and everything has changed. My name is Vic Barrett. I'm 30 years old, and I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm finally finishing up all that college that I missed in my early 20s. As I sit on the light rail from New York to Madison after a weekend with my folks, it's easy to reflect on the transformation that has swept over the country in the past 10 years. Windmills and solar arrays dot the landscape, and as we pass where the Interstate 80 was 10 years ago, the green uniform of the Climate Corps workers are easy to pick out. They are working to reforest the decommissioned highway in order to sequester carbon and restore habitat for the wildlife that is slowly returning to the area. I'm 30 years old now, and I'm actually considering having those kids I always wanted. Crazy, we finally live in a world where that feels safe, or it even feels like an option. It's hard for me to imagine that 10 years ago, I was in a courtroom in a small town in Oregon, fighting for my generation's right to a future, fighting for our constitutional right to life, liberty, and property. Thinking back to that time, I can hear the shouts of the thousands of people rallying in solidarity with us outside of the courthouse, all of them intent on supporting the youth fighting for their future, giving us all the energy and love we needed in order to try and save the world. It all started when me and my friends decided to sue the federal government. I remember that first glimmer of hope when I read Judge Ann Aiken's decision to ensure our right to a stable climate. I remember all of the stress and excitement as we moved forward through the courts and did what some people said we never would. We won, and we kept on winning. I'll never forget the feeling that I had when then I knew that my future, the future of young Americans everywhere, was finally guaranteed by our nation's government. The feeling of sheer relief when I heard that we had received a historic decision from the Supreme Court recognizing our constitutional right to a stable climate capable of sustaining human life. Of course, even after the court's decision, there was plenty of work to do. We had to fight every step of the way to make sure that the court's opinion was implemented. And not only implemented, but implemented with racial and economic justice at its core. I had to work so hard to ensure that people like me, Black, brown, and indigenous people, were finally protected against the environmental oppression they'd been victim to for decades. Communities of color today are thriving in the way they always had the potential to, thriving without the weight of systemic environmental racism plaguing their life every day. The decision and subsequent shift in policy had ripples across the world. As the United States invested heavily in renewable energies and ended all subsidies for fossil fuels in the global market, the entire world was able to rapidly transition off of fossil fuels. For me, knowing that the energy policy of the United States no longer contributed to the demise of my ancestors and family in Honduras was a huge weight off my chest. I could sleep easier knowing that my people, the Garifuna people, were no longer critically endangered by sea level rise and the collapse of the fisheries that they had depended on since the beginning of their time. Every summer, when I go visit my family, I'm able to fish off the shores of our ancestral homeland, a homeland I hope one day I'll inherit. No longer do I have the dread of the day that my people are pushed from their land by rising seas, or the day that the Garifuna culture ceases to exist. Today, I can imagine bringing kids into this world to carry on the culture of our people. And it's kind of funny because most parents I know talk about wanting their kids to follow in their footsteps. But me, I don't want that at all. I want my kids to be kids. I don't want them to be warriors or agitators or plaintiffs, having to wake up every morning to fight a battle against their own government to protect their planet, their people, and their future. When I was 20, I spent a lot of time alone in my room, writing another speech, hunched over my laptop with the weight of the world on my shoulders. And it's kind of bizarre looking back at it, that I was just a kid having to tell the adults in powers to care about my life. Yet here we are, and it's the year 2029. And thanks to the Supreme Court's ruling on the Juliana versus United States lawsuit, we are just a few years from completely decarbonizing our nation and our planet. Over the next 70 years, the United States will continue to work to change land management practices and naturally sequester carbon on a scale that will bring us back to 350 parts per million by the end of the century, and ensure a just and climate-stable planet for not only my children, but their children after. So as I sit on this light rail, looking at the way the world has changed, and reflecting on what I, one person, did to contribute to that, I remember all the times I had to lift myself up, remind myself that every tear shed and every moment of fear was worth a better future. And I could smile knowing that I was right all along. I knew all along that as people work together, as long as we center our motivation to make this world as good as possible, for as many people as possible, we are truly unstoppable. And every moment leading up to this one has been proof of that. Thank you.
Wow. Hi, everyone. I'm Naomi Klein, and I am so happy and honored to be here. What a night. I want to thank those three amazing young leaders. You have done something incredibly brave. You dared to dream in public, to imagine the beautiful futures that you so richly deserve, the futures that you have a right to, that we must demand for you with every fiber of our being, and that is what tonight is about. It is about the right to a future. Friends, we are living through some very scary times. As Greta has told us so many times, our house is on fire. And I firmly believe that there are three things that have to align if we are going to douse the flames. One is what we just saw, the courage to dream a different kind of world and a different kind of future, to shake off the sense of inevitable apocalypse that permeates every aspect of our culture, to give us a destination, a common goal, a picture of the world we are working towards. But those dreams are useless unless we are willing to embrace the two other forces. One is the need to confront the truth of our moment in history, the truth of how much we have already lost and how much more we are on the brink of losing if we do not embrace revolutionary levels of change immediately. The other thing we have to do is we have to find our fight. We have to come together across differences and build credible and unshakable power. In the face of the fires roiling our world, we have to find our own fire. We have to be that fire. Truth and fire. That is what we need. And our next speaker embodies these twin imperatives with every word that she speaks and every choice that she makes. Greta Thunberg is one of the great truth tellers of this or any time. Let me refresh your memories about some of her most iconic lines. To the UN climate negotiators in Poland last December, she said, "You are not mature enough to tell it like it is, even that burden you leave to us children." To the British MPs who asked her to speak to them, she asked, "Is my English okay? Is the microphone on? Because I'm beginning to wonder." To the rich and mighty in Davos who praised her for giving them hope, she replied, "I don't want your hope. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear that I feel every day. I want you to act. I want you to act as you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if the house is on fire, because it is." She also told them that not everyone is to blame for the climate crisis, as we are so often told. No, she looked them in the eye and she said that they were to blame. Or many of them, and we will always love her for that. But Greta is not all talk. All of this began with action. It began when Greta realized 1 year and 1 month ago that if she wanted politicians to put themselves on emergency footing to fight climate breakdown, then she needed to reflect that state of emergency in her own life. And so she stopped doing the one thing that all students are supposed to do when everything is normal, and that is go to school. She stopped. Instead, she stationed herself outside of Sweden's parliament with a handmade sign that said simply, "School strike for climate." She started doing it every Friday, and pretty soon, she attracted a small crowd. And then other students started doing it in other cities as well. Students like Alexandria Villaseñor, who is here tonight, and who stations herself outside of the United Nations in this city every Friday, every week, rain, snow, or shine. Sometimes the student climate strikes were just one lonely kid. Sometimes tens of thousands showed up. And then on March 15th of this year came the first global school strike for climate. Over 2,000 strikes in 125 countries on every continent. 1.6 million people participated on a single day. Now that is not half bad for a movement that had started just 8 months earlier with a single 15-year-old girl in Stockholm, Sweden. And now this movement is gearing up for its biggest challenge yet. They have called on people of all ages to join them and go on strike around the world starting on September 20th. And I trust that all of you tonight, especially after hearing those incredibly moving dispatches from the future, will heed that call, because protecting the future is not a spectator sport. Greta and the many other amazing young organizers have been very clear that they do not want us adults to pat them on the head and thank them for the hope infusion as if it's some sort of anti-aging serum. They want us to join them and fight for the future alongside them. to fight for the future because it is their right. It is all of our duty to find our fight and find our fire. Please join me in welcoming Greta Thunberg. Now, Greta, we can't really see the audience very well, but I think you know that they were on their feet, right? It is such an amazing treat for me to be here with Greta. This is the first day that we are meeting, but I feel like we know each other. And I just wanted to start, Greta, by talking to you about the way that you come to be with us here tonight. We all know that you took a very small sailboat, entirely powered by wind, a little bit of...
Well, it was one of the people on the boat, his wife called on the satellite phone and explained that the Amazon is on fire. And right after that call, he called for everyone else of us and said, like, the Amazon is burning, and that it was serious, and it was just so shocking, and it was so hard to realize, because being on the ocean, you cannot do anything, you cannot impact it in any way, you cannot do anything about it. You just have to sit there, and it was horrible to sort of the knowledge of that. But and then when I came to shore, it was the first time I could see pictures of it, and to really find out the details about it. And it was, I remember that was one of the first things I did when I came to shore, because, so.
Yeah. So you've been here for a little bit more than a week now. Is this your first time in the US?
No, I have been here before, but I don't remember that because I was too small. I think I was 3 years old. I have pictures, but no memories.
Do you have any observations to share after having been here for a little while about some of the differences?
Well, you mean in the climate debate, or just...
Or generally, the state of the subways. You're allowed to bash New York subways if you want to.
You use a lot of air conditioning here.
Not tonight, though.
Not in here, but backstage, it's cold. And it was many impressions, because coming from that boat where you have nothing, and I remember the first thing I noticed when I woke up that morning when we had arrived was that it suddenly smelled something. Pollution, of course, but at least it was something. And going from one extreme to New York City, it's the exact opposite. So it took a few days to really get used to it, and especially during the nights when you were up, walking to the toilet, of course, you almost fell down because everything was so shaky, and it was amazing to shower for the first time. Yeah, but there's a lot of differences, and also in the way we talk about the climate crisis. Of course, here it's more like it's more like something you either believe in or not believe in. And where I'm from, it's more like it's a fact.
So speaking of facts, one of the consistent messages that you've taken into all of these spaces, and that I know you will be continuing to take, is that you're not telling politicians what they should do, you're telling them that they should be listening to scientists. And as a researcher and writer about climate change myself, I'm always struck that your speeches are so careful and could easily be footnoted with all of the best scientific reports. And so I'm wondering how you work with climate scientists, what your relationship is.
I have a very close relationships to a lot of climate scientists, and that I think is necessary when you have so many people listening to what you're saying, and especially when you hold speeches that is going to be seen by a lot of people. You need to have a solid ground. You cannot just make assumptions. You need to have facts on everything and sources of everything. And so when I have made a speech like this is almost finished, I send a copy to, it could be one scientist, sometimes it's 5 or 6 scientists, and to just let them have a look and make sure everything is as it is supposed to be, and that nothing can be defined in a different way, and that it cannot be misunderstood. And also I ask them sometimes personal questions like, what does this mean, and why are they talking about that, and why, and so on, to have them explain things to me, and that has helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I mean, just this idea that you've been skipping school is so absurd to me, I mean, this is just an incredible advanced level education that you've given yourself on the fly and under so much scrutiny, because very, very quickly you've become really the most prominent voice of the climate movement, and that is a really heavy responsibility. And you're clearly really careful about that. I wanted to ask you about this other responsibility that you've taken on, which has to do with being very public from the beginning about being on the autism spectrum. It was in your Twitter bio, climate activist with Asperger's. And that leads to a whole other level of responsibility, because you're probably also the most prominent person in the world right now who self-identifies as being on the autism spectrum, and that's really, really important to people who identify with it. And I can speak about that personally because I have a 7-year-old son with special needs, and you are his hero. And as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said in that video, you can't be it if you can't see it, and you're out there being this incredible role model, and to me really embodying this sort of slogan that we hear, diversity is our strength, right? You have talked so beautifully about how the way your mind works is what allows you to focus, right? And it's also partly what allows you not to really care what other people are focused on, right? Whether it's like imitating celebrities on Instagram or whatever it is, like what's important. So how have you navigated that? How have you decided to be so public? It's left you open to terrible attacks. How have you made these decisions?
I really didn't think about being public of it, because it was in my profile and biography on social media, and I didn't think about it. I mean, it was just, why should I not be public about that? Why should that be something to not be public about? But then I sort of noted that it was a big thing, that not many people were public about their diagnosis. But I just think it's so important because still many people see to have a diagnosis to be neurodiverse to be something negative, and it doesn't have to be. And of course it can limit you in many ways. It has limited me a lot, but you can also convert that into be something good, something positive. And that is what I have done, and that is what I think we should encourage more people to do. Because I am different from everyone else, and it is thanks to my diagnosis, my Asperger's syndrome. And because without that, I wouldn't have noticed this crisis. I remember, because everyone else, they saw the same thing, they saw the same pictures and films as I did, the destruction of nature and what was happening with the climate, but no one of them seemed to really, I didn't understand why their lives wasn't turned upside down like mine was. And that in the fight against the climate crisis, there are a lot of people who are on the autism spectrum, and that is, of course, that cannot just be a coincidence. I think it has something to do with us. We walk the walk, and we don't have the distance from what we know and what we say to what we do and how we act is not that far, but to normal people it is. They cognitive dissonance, and I can't, for example, understand that someone can say like, yeah, climate change is very important, and then not do anything about it. Because if you know how important it is, then you know that you also have to do something, that you also have responsibility to do something. And so, yeah.
But I think this is what, thank you, Greta.
And
I think,
and without my diagnosis, also I wouldn't have been such a nerd, and then I wouldn't have had the time and energy to just look through the boring facts and still be interested.
I think there's something so powerful about the fact that, I think so many people who are neurotypical, right? Part of what allows us to live with these unbearable levels of cognitive dissonance is that we take our social cues from each other. We look, you learn about a million species are facing extinction, and people are horrified by that. That is their first reaction. But then you look around and it's like everybody's acting as if it isn't a big deal, and they're on to the next thing, and they're watching, apocalypse porn on Netflix, and that's, and then you're like, well, I guess that means that it's not so bad. And so you repress that first impulse. And what you're saying is you weren't able to repress that first impulse, and so you actually said, no, the house is on fire. And now what's interesting is that so many people who had that first reaction but suppressed it are seeing you out there, and now they're trusting their first instinct, and you're helping people to come to that. So that's beautiful. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can support you, if there's any ways that we can support you with these disgusting trolls that go after you. You know, I'm Canadian, and these are not marginal figures. We have the leader of a political party, a right-wing political party, who has been saying the most horrible things about you. What is your feeling about this? Should they be ignored? Should they be reported? What do we do with these guys, these bullies?
I mean, obviously, I can't do anything about it. Honestly, I think it's funny. As
well you should.
I don't know how many laugh attacks I have had just watching these tweets. And sometimes I have like a competition with myself to find the most absurd conspiracy theory.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's sometimes tough because they're also, but because they go after like things like my personality and how I am, how I look, how I behave, and I mean that is just a sign that you are winning, and that they don't have any more arguments to go after you. And because, I mean, I'm not the enemy, at least I hope not, but many people seem to think that, but they cannot argue against, because I'm only saying what the science is saying, and you can't argue against physics, you cannot, so that's why they go after me and these other activists who are trying to communicate this. And if there's a fire there, and I say it's a fire there, we need to we need to put it out. Yes, we need to put that fire out. It's like the most reasonable reaction would be that you look at the fire and say like, oh, we need to put it out. Yeah. But now they seem to be like, they look at the fire and they look at me like, what are you wearing? And
So let's talk about something that really matters a lot, which is September the 20th, and what your hopes are. What do you want to happen on September 20th?
I want September 20th to be another tipping point, a social tipping point where people start to realize the urgency of the crisis, and there will be so many people that we cannot look away anymore, and that we have people of all ages, of all parts of society standing together, fighting for the same cause, because that would be so powerful. And I think it could have a huge impact, especially since on the 23rd, it is the UN Climate Action Summit. And I think it could have, at least I hope it could have a difference on that summit, that we really show that we are many, and that we demand that you listen to the science, and that you actually take your responsibility and do what you need to do. And so I hope that it will definitely be some kind of tipping point, and that it will also open the eyes of people and make sure that for this summit, the world leaders have all eyes on them, and so that they have such a feeling that they cannot embarrass themselves now because they have too many people watching them. That's how I want it to be.
And can you talk a little bit about, you've made this decision not to go back to school, and you're going to be on this side of the Atlantic for a little while. What comes next for you after the strike? And maybe you can talk a little bit about your plans to go to Chile and why that's important.
Yeah, and after the strike and the UN week, I'm not 100% sure yet what I'm going to do, but I'm going to head west and travel through the North American continent and then onto Latin America and then South America to go to Chile, Santiago de Chile, to participate in the COP25, because while I am on this side of the Atlantic Ocean, then I might as well just go there, and I have nothing better to do. So, but because this COP, I know many people say like this COP is a middle year. It's not that important as the first COP and the COP after that. But there are no middle years because all the COPs are as important. And this is such a crucial time. Now is when the changes, if we want to be, we need to do it as soon as possible. Now is such an incredibly essential time that we need to start doing this now, and that we cannot wait until the next COP. We cannot wait until the next big UN summit. But we need to do it now, and I just hope that we will not fail on this, and that the world leaders will not fail on this. We have to prepare ourselves for the worst. We have to think like, okay, this will probably not lead to anything, but we will still have to go on. We must still go on because, there is no reason not to continue. And so we must push and we must act in every situation.
Thank you, Greta. So I think part of the reason why sometimes there is a feeling that people can't focus on climate change, that can't focus on the climate crisis, is that we live in this time of many crises, of overlapping crises. And the people who are most vulnerable to climate change, to climate disruption, are also facing the daily emergencies of hunger, of displacement, of police violence. And your colleagues in the youth climate movement who spoke earlier, your friends, talked a lot about the importance of fighting for racial justice, fighting against economic inequality and exclusion as we transform our economies. And one of the things we see really clearly is that the same people who are gleefully setting the world on fire, the Bolsonaros and the Trumps, are also the people who are spreading the most hate, who are empowering the most supremacist killers on this planet. And one of the really horrifying things that happened this year is that on the day that you and your friends and colleagues in this movement held this beautiful global climate strike on March 15th, that was the same day that in Christchurch, New Zealand, a killer went into a mosque and killed 50 people. And he actually called himself an eco-fascist. So in your mind, how do we weave these movements together? How do we solve multiple crises? I mean, it's not all on you to do it, but I'm interested in how you see these forces connected, the fires, the climate fires, but also the fires of hate that are so strong in Europe, including in Scandinavia.
Yes, I mean, we live in very dark times in many different ways, and it feels like we are feeling worse, and the situation in our societies are getting worse at the same time as the planet is getting worse, and everything is just moving in the wrong direction, and we cannot just fix the climate without fixing all these other issues. They have to be combined. And I mean, environmental racism is a thing. It is happening everywhere, and we need to see that, and we need to really, the heart of the climate crisis is climate and ecological justice, environmental justice, and because you cannot, I mean, of course, I don't know how to solve it, but just that we need to work together, and we need to, because we are all, after all, in the same boat, and
one of the things that I just feel that we should register tonight is that people in the Bahamas who have tried to evacuate hurricane-ravaged parts of their islands are being turned away, who are trying to come to the United States. So we see these forces playing out in real time. And this is certainly not an abstract question. So we are wrapping up, but I just want to ask you just a couple of questions. We are in the middle of an endless election campaign here in this country. You have said that you have no desire to meet with Donald Trump, and I think that is very wise. And you keep your distance from politicians, and I know that you're careful not to be claimed, and that's, I think, very wise as well. But there is this debate going on within the Democratic Party as it tries to decide who to run against Donald Trump about whether or not to have a response to climate change that is very bold, that spends a lot of money to do these transformations, and this counter response, which is it's too much, it's too big, it's too expensive. Do you have anything to add to these debates about just, in particular, the idea that it's kind of too expensive to deal with climate change?
Well, I mean, if the only argument, I mean, it is, the money is there. If we can save the banks, then we can save the world. I mean, if there's something we are not lacking in this world, it's money. And I mean, of course, many people do lack money, but I mean, governments and these people in power, they do not lack money. And also we need to have the polluters to actually pay for the damage they have caused. So, I mean, to that argument, I would not even respond to that argument, because it has been said so many times that the money is there. What we lack now is political will and social will to do it. So to that, I don't respond.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, there's no doubt that movement power, and particularly young people intervening, and the Sunrise Movement in this country has already changed completely reshaped the political debate and forced so many bolder policies, moved the bar, and we're seeing that people who are, many of them too young to vote, have the power to actually change the political map. We're seeing it right now as we speak. And I just wanted to ask you, we're going to get a couple more words from you a little bit later on, but as we end this conversation, young organizers are gearing up for September 20th. They're working really hard. It's stressful. There's homework. There's lots of other things. Movement work is never easy. Do you have a message to your friends out there, some of whom you haven't met yet, about how to stay strong in the weeks ahead?
I mean, I know it's very hard to. These people, they have a lot to do because they are so amazing that they do this on their free time, completely for free, and I mean, they are just so admirable, and I hope they know that, and I hope they know that they have all the support in the world. Right? We all stand behind them, and I mean, it will be hard a lot of times, and you will feel like you cannot go on anymore because nothing is happening and no one is doing anything, and you will always constantly feel like you are not doing enough, and that is because this is that is a very dangerous feeling to feel, especially when you are actually doing everything you can. So just know that if you should take help from people, and you should also allow yourself to be human and to rest, because what they are doing is not human, and they are doing the impossible. So just I'm eternally grateful for them, and I think I speak on behalf of future generations as well, that we are incredibly grateful for them, and that they should never forget that, and never let anything divide them or split them, because we are, after all, working for the same cause, and we have to remember those we are working against and those who are on our side, and yeah, just
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Greta. And that goes for you too. Taking breaks, taking care of yourself and each other. We're in it for the long haul. We're in it for the long haul, and we have to take really good care of each other. Greta, thank you so much for being here. We are so honored by your presence. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Greta. Thank you, Greta. So, everyone, we're not saying goodbye to Greta yet. She's going to stay on stage a little bit longer and share a few more words with us. But before, we are going to get an incredibly important report from the front lines of the crisis in the Amazon rainforest, an ecological crisis for our planet, and a human rights crisis for the indigenous people living there. As we know, July was the hottest month ever recorded. Heat records were set all over the world. In Europe, Paris reached 109 degrees Fahrenheit. And as Greta has said, our house is on fire, and this past summer, as seems to happen every summer, those fires are literal and unprecedented, from the Canary Islands to Greenland. But what captured so many of our attention is the devastation in the Amazon. the seat of so much glorious plant and animal life, home to so many indigenous peoples and cultures that are dedicated to protecting those forests. In this case, what sparked the fires was more than high temperatures and the climate crisis. It was the result of government policy, of landowners and private interests determined to evict indigenous people from their lands, take control of it for monocrops, for cattle ranches. It is all for greed. Xiuhtezcatl was born in the Ensa Shuar community in the Amazon region of Ecuador. For 2 decades, he has worked with different indigenous communities in the Amazon basin. He is a peer-reviewed author of articles on the ecology of the Amazon. Xiuhtezcatl decided that he needed to become a political leader if he was going to help stop the devastation that he was witnessing. And today he is vice coordinator of COICA, which is the collective voice of indigenous organizations in the Amazon basin. So we have a true leader, a true fighter in our midst. We are incredibly lucky and honored that he's able to be with us in person to share a firsthand account of what is happening to the oxygen-producing, rain-making, life-giving lungs of our planet, and to tell us what we can do to support the people on the front lines to protect the Amazon, a fight to protect the future. Please join me in welcoming Xiuhtezcatl.
Hola. Hola, Greta.
Buenas noches, Naomi. Hola,
Good evening, Naomi.
Greta.
Greta.
Buenas noches con todos ustedes.
Good evening to all of you.
Vika Shuarete, Campuñun Mañaviñaje. Yo soy Shuar.
I am Shuar.
Mi nombre es Xiuhtezcatl.
My name is Xiuhtezcatl.
Vengo de la selva ecuatoriana,
I come from the Ecuadorian jungle,
de la cuenca amazónica,
from the Amazon basin,
en representación de la COICA,
representing COICA,
nuestros hermanos
our
de
brothers
Amán, de Indonesia,
from Amman, Indonesia,
nuestros hermanos de Centroamérica, Mesoamérica, de AMPB,
our brothers and sisters from the Mesoamerican AMPB,
y nuestros hermanos de APIB de todo Brasil.
and our brothers and sisters from APIB of all of Brazil.
Nosotros somos más de 30 millones de personas.
We're more than 30 million people.
Estamos protegiendo más de 60 millones de hectáreas de bosques en el mundo.
We're protecting more than 60 million hectares of forest in the world.
Estoy aquí junto a los luchadores y luchadoras jóvenes que hemos empezado a proteger los bosques, a proteger la vida.
I am here with all the youth, everyone, men, women here fighting, struggling to protect the forests and protect the earth.
El mandato que me han dado niños, jóvenes, mujeres de todos los bosques del mundo,
The mandate I have received by the children, boys, girls, women, everyone in the forests,
es decirles que los bosques de la Amazonía y en el mundo y los pueblos indígenas del mundo están en peligro.
is to say that the forests of the people, of the indigenous people, of everyone in the world are in danger.
Si ustedes no nos ayudan, ya no podemos seguir protegiendo. Nosotros estamos dando nuestra vida para proteger la salud del planeta.
If you don't help us, we cannot continue this fight. We are giving our lives to help the future of this planet.
Los gobiernos, las grandes empresas extractivas nos están amenazando día a día con las empresas petroleras, mineras, hidroeléctricas y otras actividades que ya no son sostenibles para la Amazonía y todos los bosques del mundo.
And the companies, the governments, the corporations for petroleum, for mining, the hydroelectrics, they are causing so much harm to this world and destroying this planet for us.
Los pueblos indígenas estamos demostrando con nuestro territorio, con nuestros bosques, los recursos, el agua, las montañas, que estamos siendo eficientes para la protección del planeta.
The indigenous people are showing us ways to use the territory, our resources, and our water in a more efficient way for this planet.
No hace falta ser científico para demostrar que nosotros somos eficientes.
You don't need to be a scientist to show that we can be efficient.
Porque nuestros abuelos, nuestros niños ya lo dijeron, ya lo estamos protegiendo.
Because our grandparents, our kids have already said it, and we are protecting it.
Sin embargo, tengo que agradecer a los científicos en este momento de IPCC que han dicho, los pueblos indígenas son eficientes.
I have to give thanks to the scientists that are part of the IPCC that have proved that the children are being efficient with nature.
Porque los ríos están siendo contaminados, los océanos llenos de basura, las ciudades insostenibles. Vengo a decirles y proponerles alternativas nuevas.
The rivers are being contaminated, the oceans have garbage, the cities are not sustainable. So I'm here to talk to you about a way to change.
Todos juntos podemos hacer un cambio.
Together we can have a change.
Si entre nosotros no nos ponemos de acuerdo, no vamos a dar solución concreta y real.
If we don't agree with each other, we're not going to have a solid and a real solution.
Y estamos aquí,
and we're here,
cerca de la cumbre de Nueva York, cumbre climática que se va a dar la siguiente semana.
Close to the summit, the climate summit that's going to happen next week here in New York.
Estamos aquí para que no se den solamente meros declaraciones o acuerdos políticos.
We're here just so that they don't only give promises, political promises, mere promises.
Necesitamos acción en el territorio.
We need action in the territory.
Los pueblos indígenas necesitan acceder a apoyos internacionales, a los recursos internacionales económicos para gestionar, hacer gobernanza de los territorios y de los bosques que están quedando en el mundo.
The indigenous people need help from international help to have economic means to be able to help the forests and save the forests.
Para continuar con esta lucha,
to continue with the struggle,
necesitamos conocernos.
We need to meet each other.
Ahora hacemos una alianza.
Now we create an alliance.
Jóvenes,
youth,
niños,
children,
adultos,
adults,
sabios, científicos,
sages, wise
académicos,
scientists, academics,
toda la sociedad
all of society,
del mundo para emprender una cruzada sin precedente.
In this whole world, everyone, so we could start this task that is unprecedented for the world.
Y la propuesta es la siguiente.
And this is the proposal.
Hay que garantizar los territorios de pueblos indígenas mediante entrega de títulos, propiedad de tierras, propiedad económica.
We have to give the guarantee the indigenous peoples by giving them titles, by giving them the rights to the land.
Apoyar las iniciativas concretas, sostenibles, innovadoras de pueblos indígenas en el mundo.
To support all the initiatives that the indigenous people that are doing for renewable and sustainable ideas.
Porque las selvas, los bosques son vivientes.
Because the forests, the jungles, they are living creatures.
Nosotros somos parte de ella.
We are part
y
of
tenemos
them.
La responsabilidad de proteger.
And we are responsible for protecting them.
Los territorios indígenas son sagradas.
The indigenous territories are sacred.
Como la iniciativa de Cuenca Sagrada de Perú y Ecuador en Sudamérica.
Like the initiative of the basins by Peru, Ecuador, and
Perú. Los dos países.
The two countries.
Que propone dejar bajo suelo el petróleo porque ya no es sostenible.
That propose to no longer extract petroleum from the ground because
ríos.
The mining
y nosotros estamos comiendo los peces ya contaminados con metales pesados.
Is contaminating the rivers to the point that now we're eating fishes that are contaminated with these metals.
Por eso, ahora todos juntos necesitamos mejor planeta, más equitativo, más justo y para ello necesitamos trabajar juntos.
And that's why together we need to make a planet that's more equal, more justice, and that's why we have to work together.
Ahora
Now,
quiero presentar el pedido de nuestros niños de la selva que están allá y nadie les escucha.
now I want to present the proposal by our children in the jungles who have
De
made
los
a request.
jóvenes,
From the youth,
de los ancianos,
from the elders,
de nuestros chamanes
from our shamans
que han mandado un mensaje al mundo
that have sent a message to
e
the world
invitar a nuestra activista Greta
and invite our activist
para
Greta
que nos honre con su presencia para conocer los territorios, los bosques, las comunidades.
to come and get to meet us at the jungles, the communities, the tribes, the people, where we are,
Para conocer la vida de las comunidades
so she could learn about the lives of the
y
community.
ellos están con la esperanza, porque esos niños, esos jóvenes, esos ancianos siempre han protegido, siempre han protestado y también han propuesto.
Because those children, the youth, the elders, they've always protected, they've always protested about what's happening.
Y Greta se ha sumado a esa acción.
And
Te
Greta
felicitamos, Greta.
has assumed that responsibility, and we greet you and we thank you, Greta.
Tenemos una aliada más
We have one more ally.
y nos sentimos más fortalecidos porque desde hoy en adelante vamos a trabajar juntos
And we feel stronger
para
because,
proteger a los que viven en el bosque.
and we feel stronger now because we're working together to protect the rights, protect the nature of the forests and the jungle and its people.
Formalmente quiero entregar esta invitación que han hecho los niños, los jóvenes, los pueblos indígenas a recorrer Latinoamérica, Suramérica, Asia, Congreso Latinoamericano de Áreas Protegidas.
And I give you this formal invitation made by the children, by the youth, to come with us and take the walk, take the tour of Latin America, Asia, and the other parts of the world of
Y nos
forests.
vamos hacia la COP25 a Chile,
And we'll go all the way, make it down to the COP
porque ya no
in Chile.
queremos solo declaraciones, queremos más acción.
Because we no longer want any.
Formalmente esta invitación.
I give you formally this invitation.
Gracias.
Quiero entregar este collar
I want to
que
give you
representa la diversidad, la biodiversidad, representa el bosque, representa los animales, los pueblos indígenas, los seres vivientes que están en el territorio de los bosques. Así que lleva este recuerdo que es símbolo de lucha, símbolo de diversidad, símbolo de diferentes pensamientos de pueblos indígenas del mundo.
And I give you this chain, which is a symbol of biodiversity, the forest, the people, the children, and to remember the symbol of this fight that we have taken about all together for the jungle and the forests.
Encender el fuego de nuestros corazones
We
para
need-
seguir protegiendo. Necesitamos encender el agua que está en nuestra alma, en nuestro cuerpo. Por eso, Greta, el día 20 de septiembre vamos a estar junto a ti para decir al mundo y marchar, decir, lo que estamos haciendo está mal, ya no es sostenible. Ya tenemos que cambiar nuestro estilo de vida. Tenemos que dejar el consumismo.
And we need to start a fire. We need to start a fire in our hearts, not a fire in the Amazon, so we can protect. Start the fire in the water that is our souls. And this is why with Greta, I invite you on December 20th for us to come together and march and fight for our life.
Que viva los pueblos indígenas del mundo.
May the indigenous peoples
Que vivan los
live
territorios.
and all the territories
Que
live,
vivamos todos.
that we all can live.
Seguimos con fuerza.
We could live.
Gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Gracias. Gracias. Thank you. Thank you, Xiuhtezcatl. I also want to thank his amazing translators, Stephen Maldonado. And now, thank you. I want to invite Xiuhtezcatl, Xiye, and Vic back to the stage. And we are just gonna just give you a really quick last message, something you can do right now. We're gonna hear from each of these young organizers, and then a final word from Greta. Xiuhtezcatl.
All right. A recent study came out that says that there's over 71 million people in the United States that would pay $10 a month to reverse the climate crisis, which is like a Netflix subscription to reverse the greatest crisis of all time. So what we are doing is we're building 10 years. We are launching it in September in conjunction with the marches, literally in the next couple of weeks. And to be involved in that, to sign up for that subscription, to join this movement, to bring climate action into every facet of our society and our culture, from entertainment industry to sporting events that we attend, to conferences, to the products that we are consuming. Earth Guardians going to be announcing that launch within the next week. So please go and follow and support that. And that is one of the many other things we can do to be a part of this movement. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here today. It was an amazing evening, and I want everyone to take out your phones, go to strikewithus.org, and RSVP for September 20th climate strike. There's an event on Facebook, share it. We need everyone on the street. If you don't have a strike near you, you can host your own. This is a moment where all of us are going to come together. And I just wish to see you all striking with us. Thank you.
I personally believe that story sharing is one of the biggest tools that we have for change, and I would encourage you guys to all go to youthvgov.org and read the stories of Xiuhtezcatl, I, and our fellow plaintiffs suing the U.S. federal government, and hear about the climate impacts that we faced, and carry those stories in your heart as you get ready for the 2020 election. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. Greta, last word for this part.
Yeah. We are right now in such a crucial time in history. We are standing at a crossroads, and we have to decide which path we want to take. And I know for sure which path I'm going to take, and everyone has to choose. There can be no people standing by watching. Everyone needs to be involved. Everyone who can do something needs to do everything they can. And to do your best is no longer good enough. We all now have to do seemingly impossible. And so I just, please pick a path, pick a side, and continue and never stop fighting. And see you on September 20th. And
thank you. Please join me in one last thank you for all of our amazing speakers. All right. All right. So right there on the screen is the information about the strike. Now, don't go anywhere, don't start packing up, because we have one last treat for you. Before we send you on your ways, we want you feeling powerful and ready for anything, and I promise you that you won't regret it, so don't go anywhere. But before that, I do have one last message for you. It comes from the young climate strikers in the UK. They say, "It was the spark, but we are the wildfire." And that is the message. We have to join that wildfire. We have to be the fire. Because the fires engulfing our planet are not natural disasters doing product of arson. The cattle ranchers, also talking about the Exxons, all of the fossil fuel giants who knew damn well that their business model was at war with life on Earth. They knew it decades ago. They did it anyway, and they are doing it still. This is arson. It is arson on a planetary scale, and they are aided and abetted by the arsonists in the highest office of almost every country on earth, including and especially this one, the presidents and the prime ministers approving new oil pipelines and new coal mines and building highways through old growth forests. They have all set these fires with full knowledge of the effects. They have knowingly upset the balance of our Earth's elements. They have dug up fossilized life forms from the Earth and poured it into the sky, interfering with nature's incredible ability to create, sustain, and regenerate life. In the face of these epic crimes, these crimes against humanity, these crimes against the web of life, these crimes against the future, we have to find our fire. We have to fight fire with fire. We cannot be afraid of it because our fires are not like theirs. Our fires are not the destruction. They are not the fires of destruction and annihilation. Ours are the fires of justice. They are the fires of creation. They are the fires of regeneration. They are the fires of reparation. So if you are feeling angry about some of what you heard tonight, I beg you not to suppress that rage. Harness it, mix it with love for all that is left to protect, and let it loose. It is time to be the fire. Are you with me? Then say it. Say, we are the fire. We are the fire. That was good. Say it again. We are the fire. We are the fire. That's better. If there is one thing, though, that can kindle the fires within, it is not speeches, it is music. And that is what we are going to be leaving with you tonight. Before that happens, I want to thank everybody who made tonight possible. I want to thank all of my amazing colleagues at the Intercept, especially Rodrigo Brandao, our invisible master of ceremonies, and our courageous and amazing editor-in-chief, Betsy Reed. I want to thank all of our partners, 350, Purpose, all the climate strikers out there, and let's also send some love to the thousands who have been watching on live stream. Now, join me in welcoming back to the stage Xiuhtezcatl. You heard his words, now you'll hear his fire. Thank you, everyone.
And let me see your hands up. And show yourself out if you came to see something average. We came as a family, fucking industry standard. I'd rather drown together than leave my fam behind. Without them, I wouldn't have shit. I hope you can feel the magic. I'm living life grounded, steady finding the balance. Raised by warriors, ready for any challenge. You hype on the small swells, we were born to ride mavericks. This is the turning of the tides. There I was, 6 years old, my eyes wide open. I saw the storm, city swallowed up by the ocean. Humanity fucked up, look at the world broken. I want to see the borders open. I wrote this music, it was something I found hope in. My generation finally seeing the web woven. Everything is connected, my generation was chosen to guide the way to the light. This is our movement, walk on roads paved by every great leader of every revolution. We doing it our way, and this is a celebration. If love is resistance, resisting is in our nature. We're short by the thousands, people of every nation will summit the highest mountains to prove to them we can make it. It starts right here, right now. Every one of you is fire within, now is the time to shine out. And hands up if you feel it too. This music is a movement, it's proof if you feel it moving you, because the power of the people is more powerful than people in power. I believe that this will be our finest hour. Yeah. How's everybody feeling? I'm gonna invite everybody to get up on their feet, because this as the closing of this beautiful event, I'm gonna perform a couple songs if that's okay. So I'm gonna ask everybody to get up on their feet for the end of this. Let's get this. Make some noise, my boy DJ Cave him on the cuts one time.
Yo, one love, y'all. Let's go.
Hey. This song is called Limits. It's for every member of our generation to find the limitations and the boundaries.
Everybody, put your hands up like this. Put your hands up. Yeah.
Hey, hey, hey. More than we forget to enjoy.
So baby, won't you slow down? Maybe catch the sunset when you're running. Just running.
Hey, give me 1 second. It's elevated for the words of my sentence. Breathing like it's endless. Beat me to the punchline. Beat me till I'm senseless. Nothing is permanent. Life is short. Give me 1 second. Celebrated for the words of my sentence. Breathing like it's endless. Beat me to the punchline. Beat me till we senseless. Nothing is permanent. Life is short. We fucking with the government and taking on the court. Lies and the stories that the media reports. Abort the mission. Deported and missing. Spitting musical medicine. Listen to the rhythm. Hit 'em. And I'm only 19, walking Times Square and you see me on the screen. Probably see my name on your Facebook feed. I swear that I'm more than the words written about me. Living isn't free, the price that I pay. I got every day but time at the end of the day. I just wanna make the music, then I make it, put your hands up. I don't think you really understand us. Fight for the cause, die for the dream. Living to the limits when the squad's on the scene. Try to clip my wings and I still gon' fly. Running in the ink and it's still gon' write like raising the damn bar of musical excellence. Rappers sound illiterate, well I express eloquence. The album is the evidence, we better than we ever been. Train trash, concrete, stains up on my letterman. Let it in, let it go. Ain't nobody wanna know further from the truth and the places that you wanna go. Then the places that you wanna go. And we never wanna know, like, yeah, I see no limits. And it's life we living. And the wheel keeps spinning. It's life I'm living in, got no limits. I see no limits. Hey, if we living. And the wheel keeps spinning. And the life we living in, got no limits. I see no limits. And it's life we living. And the wheel keeps spinning. And the life we living in, got no limits. I see no limits. And this life we living, and the wheel keeps spinning. It's a lot for the dude, daddy gotta pay dude. The world break, you don't listen if they tell you that you can't, cause it ain't true. And nobody gonna say, hey, this life I'm living ain't got no limits. Like, hey, 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 in the back, hey, 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 this life I'm living ain't got no limits. Like, and I'm gonna do this one more song. This one's for Naomi. This track, this is super unreleased. This is gonna be on like 2 albums from now. How's everybody feeling tonight? Go with that, bro. Yeah. Yo, make some. Hey. Es ver a mi sangre indígena en mi idioma y en mi cabello. I wanna lay low. Trae humo, salgo de la selva con visiones del fin del mundo. Piel de canela, traigo el ritmo desde la selva, ya ni la muelas. Abre la puerta, prende el fuego. Suelo al cielo, mira como vuelo. Fuego, mira como vuelo. Fuego, fuego, mira como vuelo. Fuego, fuego. Yeah. Ahorita les enseño. How's everybody feeling? And I think the beautiful piece of these movements is it's not about being activists, but it's about finding how we come alive in the place in which we connect to the world the best. And for me, that's on the stage, in the studio, performing. And this is how I do. This is my art. So thank you for being a part of it. Make some noise for my DJ K one time. Shout out to everybody who organized, everybody who came out tonight. I appreciate y'all. My name is Xiuhtezcatl. I'll see you on September 20th. Xiuhtezcatl.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for joining us here tonight, and for those of you on the live stream. We invite those in the auditorium to stay for Naomi's book signing. Books are on sale in the front hall. If you have a book already, Naomi will sign on stage, so please make your way to the front right of the auditorium as you're facing.